हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू मनु लॉ क्लासेस। मेरा नाम गौतम दीक्षित है। फ्रेंड्स, इन टुडेज वीडियो वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द इम्पोर्टेंट न्यूज फ्रॉम द डेली हिंदू एनालिसिस of 15th July 2022. So let's look at the first important news. The first news is that Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who had offered to resign from the presidency of Sri Lanka. Now, earlier we had read that he is in Maldives, but now he is in Singapore and he has sent his resignation. And he has also appointed Ranil Wickremesinghe as the acting president. So now the speaker has said, the parliamentary speaker of Sri Lanka, that they will be announcing the resignation after verifying the authenticity of the document. The next news is from the economy that a fiscal deficit reigned in CAD is a concern. So we are talking about the macroeconomic risks which India is facing. So currently, if we will see the fiscal deficit, so the fiscal deficit is in the range which has been decided by the government. In the Union Budget 2022-23, the fiscal deficit was forecasted for the current financial year to be at 6.4%. But the problem is of current account deficit. Now the current account deficit, as you can see over here in this graph, that because of the rising crude oil prices and the surge in gold import, so the current account deficit has increased. Now the Union Ministry of Finance has said about a twin challenge facing the which is for the Indian economy. First is elevated inflation, as we have seen that the consumer price inflation is still above 7% mark, though it has eased. Now for the June, the consumer price index was 7.01%. Okay, but still it is very high because the upper tolerance limit of RBI is 6%. The second challenge is widening trade deficit. If we just see the widening trade deficit, so the trade deficit in June is at an all-time high of $26.2 billion because the import has been recorded at $66 billion. The next is retail inflation. So the retail inflation has eased slightly to 7.01% in June, which I have just said, and it is mainly because of the some measures taken by the government and central bank. Government ने क्या-क्या measures लिया है? Government has cut the excise duty on petroleum and diesel, and central bank it has increased the repo rate from 4.4% to 4.9%. The next news is that Kerala reports India's first monkeypox case. So we know the monkeypox case, which is one of the concern in America and in European countries. India has confirmed its first monkeypox case from Kerala. Now, here we are discussing about the presidential nominee from NDA, that is Draupadi Murmu. She is from Santhal tribe. She is from Mayurbhanj district in Odisha, and she has remained the governor of Jharkhand. She is the first governor from Jharkhand who has completed her 5-year terms. Now, there are certain important points to be noted. If you will just see, which I have highlighted, that is Dulu Manki of Chaibasa in Jharkhand. He was the first Adivasi in the country to enter a legislative council by winning from Singhbhum General Constituency in the Bihar Odisha Legislative Council, which was formed in 1921. The second is Theble Olaun. He became the first tribal person to become a member of parliament in 1946 on a Congress ticket. The next is about Draupadi Murmu. So Miss Murmu, she belongs to the forest dependent Santhal tribe, and the Santhal tribes, they are found in Jharkhand, West Bengal and Odisha. It is the third largest scheduled tribe in India after Bhils and Gonds. The next is about the Santhals. So if you will just see that in 1855, two brothers, Sidhu and Kohu Murmu, they mobilized 60,000 Santhals to stage an armed rebellion against the British, whose policies had forced the tribal people into bonded labor. Now, what is the current status of Santhals? Many Santhals tribals, they have gone on to become bureaucrats, writers, bankers, and business. Now, Draupadi Murmu, if she becomes the president, she will be the first Adivasi president of India. The next is news from the state, that is Maharashtra. So Maharashtra government, whose chief minister is Eknath Shinde and deputy chief minister is Devendra Fadnavis. The Maharashtra government has slashed or reduced the value-added tax on petrol and diesel by ₹5 and ₹3 per liter. The next is they have also given clearance to Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project. Now, what is about the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project? So if you will just see the Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train project, it is total rupees 1,10,000 crore project, of which rupees 88,000 crore is being funded by the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Now 70% land which is required in Maharashtra, it is coming from two districts, that is Thane and Palghar districts. Now, friends, bridging the gap. Now, yesterday in the newspaper, we read about the Global Gender Gap Index for 2022. India's rank is 135 out of 146 country. Now, if you will just see that in 2021, India's rank was 140 out of 156 country. Now, there are 4 parameters for this index. Those are economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. Among that, India has been ranked at 146 in health and survival. The Global Gender Gap Index, it is released by the World Economic Forum. And if you will just see that India ranks poorly among its South Asian neighbors, that is, it is ranked behind Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bhutan. Only 3 countries, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, are behind India. Now, there are certain important things in the report. That in 2022, when we have come out of pandemic and the war is going on and economic crisis is going on all over the world, the global gender gap has been closed by 68.1%. Okay, so the report says that it will take around 132 years to reach full gender parity, and it will be longest in South Asia, which will take another years, that is 197 years. Now, if we will come to Indian statistics, so if you will just see that in India, the female population is about 66 crore. And if you will see in pandemic years, the incomes have shrank. Women have faced hurdles on every front, like food, health, and education for girl, child, and jobs. If you will just see the National Family Health Survey data of 2019-21, it shows that 57% of women aged 15 to 49 age bracket, they are anemic, like is lack of iron, and which is up from 53%. Okay, then 88.7% of married women participate in key household decisions. Only 25.4% of women which are aged between 15 to 49 years have worked in last 12 months and they were paid in cash. Now, women who have having bank account or other types of saving accounts, it has increased to 78.6%, mainly because of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. But women's participation in labor force, it has gone down. If you will just see the data from Center for Monitoring Indian Economy data, so in 2016-17, 15% women were employed or looking for jobs, which has dipped to 9.2% in 2021-22. Now, if we want to solve this problem of gender parity, so we need to increase the representation of women in leadership positions at all levels. The next is about the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability. This department comes under the Union Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It has released the draft of the National Policy for Persons with Disabilities. अब यहाँ पे हम देखेंगे that this policy is going to replace the 2006 policy, and there are various conventions and international agreements related to persons with disabilities. These are United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Okay, so India has signed this, hence there is the need for enactment of new disability legislation, which was passed in 2016. Now, this new act has increased the number of disabilities from 7 conditions to 21. And since India is also a party to Incheon Strategy for Asian and Pacific Decade of Persons with Disability, okay, so it was prepared under the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific region. It identifies 10 goals for Asian Pacific countries, which will ensure the inclusion of persons with disability in the mainstream. Now, if you will just see the Article 29 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, so it talks about political participation of persons with disabilities in political and public life based on equal basis. This is also recognized by the Right of Persons with Disability Act 2016. But the article says that the document, that this draft policy of 2022, it does not mention any such thing. The next is Section 11 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. It prescribes that the Election Commission of India and State Election Commission shall ensure that all polling stations are accessible to persons with disabilities, and all materials related to electoral process are easily understandable and accessible by them. If you will just look at the representation, so the representation which plays an important role in furthering the interest of marginalized community. So our constitution makers, they have recognized this with respect to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislature, but disabled people are not represented enough at all the three levels of governance. What is this three level of governance? These three level of governance are at central level, state level, and at local level. Now, this article suggests certain strategies like for political inclusions. These are building the capacity of disabled people's organizations and empowering their members through training in electoral system, government structure, and basic organizational and advocacy skills. Now, friends, we are looking at the explainer series. That is forest conservation rules prescribes the procedure to be followed for forest land to be diverted for non-forestry use such as road construction and highway development. But there is a latest version of the rules which is aiming to consolidate the act over the years. But there is one thing missing over here. If you will just see the one thing which is missing over here is consent from Gram Sabha. Okay, so earlier the proposal was that if anybody wants to acquire the forest land for any project, so for the forest land beyond 5 hectares, approval of central government's forest advisory committee was necessary. Once the FAC has approved the project, it would used to go to states. They had to ensure that the provisions of Forest Rights Act 2006, which recognize the rights of forest dwellers and tribals over their land, that are complied with means that is followed. Fine. So this is the rule of the state. But the new rules, according to the center, says that they are streamlining the process of approvals. Okay, and it will help India increase its forest cover. इस नए rule में क्या है? एक provision है which says that provision for private parties to cultivate plantations and sell them as land to companies who need to meet compensatory forestation targets. Okay, so government says that according to this, it will help India increase its forest cover and solve the problem of the states who are not finding land within their jurisdiction for compensatory purpose. Okay, now यहाँ पर हम देखेंगे कि जो सबसे important crucial चीज होता है that taking the consent from the Gram Sabha. Fine, but if you will just see that in this paragraph that it is mentioned that the state will ensure settlement of forest rights acts applicable. Okay, but the many people says, experts says that does not automatically imply the consent of resident tribals and forest dwellers. Now, friends, we have 4 labor codes which have still not been notified. The 4 labor codes are the Code on Wages, the Industrial Relation Code, the Code on Social Security, and the Code on Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions. They all have been passed, but it is still not implemented. Now, why it is not implemented? The technical reason is that the labor, okay, it falls in a concurrent list. It is a concurrent subject where both the states and center, they have the right to make a rules for that. But most of the states, they have not framed rules for these 4 labor codes. The next is factual information. There is SP Mukherjee committee, which is working towards the issue of minimum wage, but still it has not completed the task of finding the minimum wage in India. The next is Nari Adalat to be set up in a phased manner. So the Ministry of Women and Child Development, they are going to implement Nari Adalat, that is Women's Code. It will be led by women's collectives in the country. Now it is a part of alternative grievance redressal mechanism to resolve petty disputes, but at Gram Panchayat level. Now this scheme, it is the part of ministry guidelines for the under the Mission Shakti umbrella scheme of the ministry. Now the first laboratory confirmed case of monkeypox has been detected in Kerala. Now the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they have come out with the guidelines for so we will just see over here that the Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan, he has asked the state to ensure screening and testing of all likely cases of monkeypox at points of entry and in the community. Okay. Now the states and union territories, they are also required to identify hospitals and ensure adequate human resources and logistic support to manage any suspected or confirmed monkeypox case. If you will just see that the World Health Organization has a data that total of 3,413 laboratory confirmed monkeypox cases and one death have been reported to it from 50 countries and territories. Currently, this case has very high load in European region and Americas. The next is I2U2. So India is going to give land for I2U2 back food park. So we have done this. What is this I2U2? It is also called as West Asian Quad. It consists of 4 members, that is United States, United Arab Emirates, India, and Israel. Hence, it is called as I2U2. Okay, so this grouping is going to focus on bringing in private capital for specific projects related to water, energy, transportation, health, space, and food security. Now, the next is very important from foreign affairs, that is the Jerusalem Declaration. So the Jerusalem Declaration on Joint Security, it was signed by Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid and Joseph Biden. Okay, and it aims to that it will never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. The next is the International Monetary Fund has said on Thursday that it has agreed with Pakistan to resume a suspended loan program that will inject $1.17 billion into the struggling economy. Now we already know that this extended fund facility, it can increase to $7 billion and stretch until June next year. Now Pakistan is also going through a balance of payment crisis, but not as serious as Sri Lanka. So Pakistan has approached International Monetary Fund for the restarting of extended fund facility. Now, if you will see the trade deficit, it has widened to record $26.1 billion. So if you will just see, one of the reasons for high trade deficit is increasing import, especially of gold, coal purchases in June. Now the growth in export is to $40.1 billion. Okay. It also registered 23.5% growth, but this 23.5% growth has been offset by increase in import. The next is that the wholesale price index, it has eased to 15.2% in June, and the food inflation has surged to 12.54%. This trend is similar to the trend which we have observed in consumer price index. So if you will just see that in May, the wholesale price index was 15.88%, but now it has come to 15.2%. If you will just see, the surge in food price inflation is 12.4% from 10.89%. Now, who releases the wholesale price index? So it is released by the economic advisor under the Commerce and Industry Ministry. The next is rupee has touched a new low of 79.997, almost 80 per dollar. Now we know the reasons that why rupee is depreciating. One of the main reason is high current account deficit, and the second reason is that foreign portfolio investors, they are taking out their money from Indian stock market. Now, due to war and rising global commodity prices, now if you will just see, the European Union, it has cut its Eurozone growth estimate, and it has raised concern over its inflation. So if you will just see that the European Commission has cut forecast for economic growth in Eurozone for this year and 2023, and it has revised its estimate for inflation mainly because of impact of war in Ukraine. Now we already know that European countries, they depend on Russia mainly for fuel, but they have imposed sanction on Russia. So one of the reason is that the fuel prices in Europe has gone very high, which is also one of the reason that why the region is experiencing very high inflation. So friends, that's all for today. We will meet tomorrow again with a daily Hindu analysis. Till then, have a nice time. Take care. Thank you.